There's no way in hell that some of us that make some of the more basic incomes and salaries, etc., should not at least be at a place where we have a higher percentage of that economic activity. So pretty much from 2005 to 2008, 9, 10, New Orleans was a dirt cheap place to buy property. And we are a unique real estate market because we have a ton of multifamily structures. So at that stage in my life, I look and say, damn, if I'd have had a little bit more knowledge, if I'd have took the time out to do the due diligence, I had the guidance to put my attention where it needed to be and use the fact that I was working, making pretty good money around this time, 2009, 10, 11, 12, and bought at least one property. I'm sitting here reflecting, closing out the year, going into a new year. Out of all the jobs I worked, all of the economic activity that I've been at the center of by myself, out of all the money I've probably made other companies, etc. How is it that at this stage in my life, I have not touched my first $1 million yet? How in the hell do I make sure that I don't go into another full year not closing in on that number? This is being recorded December of 2024, likely released January 2025. EYL has gotten a lot of flack for being one of the more public platforms that has said $100,000 is nothing in savings. Also stating that $10 million is the new baseline for financial freedom. Honestly, that's probably pretty conservative. But at the end of the day, when you start to think about what the new normal is becoming, you look at inflation, the rising cost of goods and services, we talk about it all the time. The idea of making a median average salary or income, all the taxes and deductions that come out of that, and what you're actually left with to survive, is completely unrealistic. We all know that we need to be at a higher level. We know that $1 million is honestly not really cutting it. It's just a good baseline to start getting in the right direction, to be completely honest. Most of us, if you're an adult, have at least worked a job, probably several. Depending on who you are, you've probably worked side hustles, you've probably started and grown businesses at some point. It's been a part of a lot of economic activity, like just you by yourself. Been a part of a lot of economic activity. I know personally for me, I've been at the center of just from my labor and my spending and all the other things that contribute, my, investing, whatever the case may be. I've been at the center of millions and millions and millions of dollars of economic activity. When you think about the salary you make at a job, that salary is using a fraction or a portion of what you're producing at that job. So if you make $50,000 a year, you're likely producing $150,000, $200,000 in value for that company, ideally for that company. So if you just do the math on that, and let's just say you've worked that job for 5 years, that in itself, if we stick to the $200,000 ratio, that number is $1 million in economic activity or potential money, revenue that you've created for that company by yourself. That's not talking about taxes. That's not talking about, medical expenses, day-to-day living expenses. It's not talking about any of those other things that your money's going to, you're earning, and you're putting out. There's no way in hell that some of us that make some of the more basic incomes and salaries, etc., should not at least be at a place where we have a higher percentage of that economic activity. So when you look into the new year of 2025, how the hell do you not get to that $1 million? How do you not get to that 500,000 mark? How do you not get to those areas? I started to reflect back on my timeline for myself, and I've been really thinking about this hard because now at this stage, if you're in my age bracket of the 30s, you've lived through really interesting times the last 15, borderline 16, 17 years. I'm in my mid 30s. So I've lived through 2008. I've lived through COVID. I've lived through Katrina in my particular region. These major seismic shifts in economic activity and, societal shifts, etc., have moved a lot of money around. And I bring Katrina up for a particular reason because Katrina happened in 2005. In 2008, the economic crash happened. Real estate market in particular, stock market didn't do well, etc. Bailouts had to take place. Cool. That timeline was really close. 2005, you might as well wipe New Orleans out until sometime in 2006 before things started to even come back. So now you got 2006 to 2008, where things are kind of coming back into play in New Orleans. Real estate was plentiful and dirt cheap in New Orleans in 2008. So you had a situation where Katrina came through and wiped out a lot of people, wiped out a lot of property, residential and commercial. And then on top of that, in 2008, happening on a national level didn't help anything either. There was no real estate valuation growth in New Orleans because we already just went through Katrina, and then you double down and now you have a national issue where you have housing crash going on. So pretty much from 2005 to 2008, 9, 10, New Orleans was a dirt cheap place to buy property. And we are a unique real estate market because we have a ton of multifamily structures. Probably one of the only cities in the country where a duplex, triplex, and a fourplex are very common property in New Orleans, like all over the city. So that was my beginning of my adult life and my working years. 2005, 2006, I'm 17, 18 years old. 2008, I'm 20. 21, 22, something to that effect. So I look back on that timeline for myself and think, I didn't have the knowledge, and I was just starting to put my head on straight, get a career going for myself, start to understand the concept of economics and money in the first place. I didn't come from that background at all. So at that stage in my life, I look and say, damn, if I'd have had a little bit more knowledge, if I'd have took the time out to do the due diligence, I had the guidance to put my attention where it needed to be and use the fact that I was working, making pretty good money around this time, 2009, 10, 11, 12, and bought at least one property in New Orleans, just one, not real estate mogul with dozens and dozens and hundreds of properties. Had I just did my due diligence and got myself in position to buy one property in New Orleans, 2010, 11, or 12, ideally maybe a multifamily duplex, triplex, quadplex. The valuations of these properties in many parts of the city, you could have bought in some of these rundown areas after Katrina that were considered the hood, these rough spots, and probably got in, let's just say, between $50,000 and $100,000 on a really sizable, decent duplex, triplex, or quadplex that may have needed work, renovation, rehab, whatever the case may be. Put that value in it. Got into it for $50,000, $100,000, $120,000. Those same areas right now in New Orleans, even after everything that's going on in the last 15 to 17 years with rapid gentrification in New Orleans, a lot of rehab, a lot of spec building where they're like building these new high-scale, upscale properties in these, typically rundown areas, jacking up the real estate prices, all of these different moving parts. And it's easy that $50,000 to $100,000, $120,000 investment, had you sat in it for long enough, depending on the neighborhood, the area, and these other logistics and variables, $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, and $800,000 in value in a lot of properties around the city. A lot of them. I mean, $400,000 to $500,000 is a minimum baseline if you stayed in the property 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, which is quite realistic if you're buying a house. That is my life from like 2010, 2011, 2012 alone. That's not talking about if I'd have got in and stayed in the stock market that whole time. That's not talking about if I would have did both of these things at the same time. And these are things that, again, I didn't know coming up. I didn't know. But at the same time, I was in the proximity of it. The problem was my attention span. The biggest problem was my attention span. Because of the culture I was coming from, because of the environment I was coming from, nobody was on that type of time. Nobody was thinking that way. Nobody was talking that way. Even working in the bank in those years, being a banker, being somebody who was helping people manage their own finances, you still only learned and was trained on what they needed you to do on a baseline for the client. It wasn't really a deep dive on getting us to be financially literate and financially prudent and financially successful so we could be products of what we were pushing. That wasn't the case. You got trained enough to know the lingo, to present and sell to clients, and keep it moving and stay compliant, stay out of trouble. So going into 2025, I've got all this life experience. I've learned all these lessons. I missed these opportunities, these windows of time. Now I'm looking at it and saying, how the hell do I not make $1 million or get to $1 million in investable assets in 2025? Doing the same things I did in the past, not paying attention, not staying consistent, not getting in on opportunities early while they were towards their ground floor, and paying attention to the environment around me to know what those opportunities were. Because a lot of us in New Orleans were bitter about the gentrification process, but we didn't buy our own properties back. A lot of us didn't buy our neighbor's property when it was dirt cheap and there was money from the city to buy these vacant lots or these homes next to us that were blighted for dirt cheap. And those opportunities were there, and very few people in my particular market in that scenario took advantage of it. So now I'm sitting here looking at it saying, how do I go through 2025 and honestly the rest of the decade of the 2020s, this crucial time frame where I'm still relatively young, but made a ton of progress, but still not at a point where I can baseline and say that I've gotten myself to that certain plateau. How do I make that same mistake in 2025? Being ignorant to the environment around me and the opportunities and challenges of that environment. not immersing myself in a consistent plan, strategy, and consistently exercising that plan and strategy every single day, not making myself uncomfortable. At the time of this recording, if you haven't caught it, I dropped a video that should have been out before this one talking about how impactful that same life experience was and me taking my 401k investing seriously this time around in my career, this last 3 to 4 years since COVID. The stock market has done tremendous things since that COVID downturn, and I have heavy contributions in my 401k, double digits at this point. I'm really looking to push it further because the IRS limits are really high for you to contribute in your 401k and get the match and get the tax shelter and get the market growth. That has gotten me over 40% of cumulative returns in my 401k retirement account. Another major investable asset that will do wonders for me, whether I stay at the company and keep investing in it, or if I take it out, roll it over into a separate investment and move on with my career. That's going to be an asset not only there for me in retirement, but as I've mentioned before, it's a leverageable asset for me in my younger years as I'm still actively out here earning income and trying to accumulate more assets. Not making the same mistakes going into this new year is going to be essential. Finding the activities that are going to move me forward and exercising on them every single day, and doing it from the littlest of things all the way up to the biggest of habits and the biggest of tactics and strategies that are going to advance me forward is what's going to make the difference. If I don't want to hit that $1 million mark in investable assets in 2025, I know exactly what to do, because all I have to do is look back on all the years prior of my adult life that I didn't do it. That's all I got to do. Keep the same habits, the same mindsets, the same practices, the lack of principles, the lack of structure, all those things that contributed to me taking longer to get here than it should have. All I have to do is repeat those habits, and that's all you have to do is the same thing. That's it. All you got to do is the same thing. Keep making the same mistakes. Keep looking back on the years that you did it wrong. And keep following that same formula. And I guarantee you won't hit that $1 million in 2025. Comment down below. Let me know a couple, let us know the details of the steps in your journey of why you haven't gotten to those magic marks, whether that be 100,000, 500,000, $1 million, million plus, whatever the case may be. Comment down below. For me, it was to Katrina to current, give or take, where that learning curve was, damn, I missed all of these amazing windows to be in real estate, the stock market, other business opportunities. I was right around these things, right under my nose, and I didn't pay attention. I didn't research. I didn't learn. I didn't accompany myself around the right people who were talking about these things. And I missed out on tremendous Now I'm in the post-COVID era. It was the post-Katrina era before. Now it's the post-COVID era. In this era, my head is on way straighter. I'm learning from my mistakes. I'm immersing myself in the things that are growing and pushing things forward. My 401k has been the only thing outpacing inflation in my stock portfolios and owning property. My income hasn't done it. My salary increases haven't done it. The only thing that I can control is increasing my work ethic, following a diligent plan, and staying consistent. I want you to comment down below and let me know what that has looked like for you up to this point and how you plan on making a difference so you can hit that milestone going into the next year. Comment down below. To all my pioneers, welcome back. To my new viewers, welcome in. As always, I want each and every one of you to stay focused, stay in motion. I'll see y'all soon. This is my blueprint for financial empowerment and self-sufficiency. This is my blueprint for optimal health and body mastery. This is my blueprint for mental, physical, and spiritual momentum. This is my blueprint for prosperity.